Terence Bud Crawford absolutely destroys Errol Spence Jr. knuckleheads, and this is my reaction. Now, I don't use the term destroys lightly. I've said that before and I'll say it again. I got a lot of respect for anybody that steps into the ring. I am a kickboxing promoter myself, and I have especially a lot of respect for Errol Spence Jr. because he took this fight when he didn't have to take this fight. In boxing, a lot of people get a pass for not fighting the best, and he could have continued to do that, but he made this fight happen. So shout out to both men, respect to both men. That was incredible. That being said, we got to call a spade a spade. This was an absolute destruction of the highest order by Terence Bud Crawford. It was an incredibly efficient and impressive performance. And I got a lot of thoughts about this fight. So I'm going to kind of go in order for me on what I felt in watching this and what I felt in the aftermath. So first and foremost, after watching this fight, I thought to myself, wow, this just might be one of the greatest performances in combat sports history, especially in boxing, right? And I know that may seem like a stretch for some, but, in the years that I've been watching boxing, I've never seen somebody in such a high-stakes fight, because let's face it, these high-stakes fights are rare, right? I've rarely seen somebody rise to the occasion in a fight like this, the way that Terence Bud Crawford is, right? And I'll go on to kind of buttress my point, amplify my point, by saying that I've never seen Terence Bud Crawford, as fantastic of a talent as he is, and I've watched pretty much all his fights, I've never seen him perform this well, and for him to do so on the biggest stage, on the biggest night of his life in boxing, in my opinion, against the biggest fish, right? This was just an absolutely impressive and one of the best high-stakes performances I've ever seen. This was Clutch City, okay? Omaha is Clutch City. They need to change the name of the city in honor of Terence Bud Crawford. The other thing I wanted to talk about with you guys was you knew something special was going to happen leading up to this fight when you saw Eminem walk Terence Bud Crawford out. And then Bud Crawford walks out and he's got a fishing net incorporated into his wardrobe. I mean, come on. If you're not feeling this guy, then you just don't have a nervous system, man. This was crazy. Came out with Eminem. I will say I was a little bit, I gotta knock a point off or a star off. I was a little appointed that Eminem wasn't more active in the walkout. I kind of wanted him to be like, the other guys that come out and they're rapping and, the guys next to him or whatever. I wanted that. And I wanted him to, walk Bud Crawford all the way to the ring. He was kind of subdued. But the fact that Eminem was there and the fact that he walked out Terence Crawford like that, and the fact that this man had a fishnet, incorporated into his outfit and on his trunks, and then proceeded to do what he did. That was just absolutely crazy, guys. I'm sorry. And I need all the fighters, especially the ones at FightersRep, to take note. I want you guys to incorporate stuff like that, man. Those kind of walkouts, those kind of props. You need to play up to the crowd, man, because at the end of the day, this is about entertaining the fans, not just with skills, but with a show. So that was amazing. You knew something special was going to happen then. So then the fight starts, and I'm scoring it. I said, what, to hell with this. I'm scoring this fight. I don't need to go into the entirety of the fight or how I scored it. I had the first round for Spence. I said to myself, maybe, Crawford, he starts a little bit slow. Maybe he needs some time to kind of figure Spence out, download the information, as they say. But, I thought Spence won the first round. Then in the second round, in just the second round, in the biggest boxing match of his life, right? This guy, Bud Crawford, figures Spence out, counters him, realizes that as he's pulling away, he's only expecting one shot, and he hits him with two shots. And I want to say the second one was pretty much a jab. I mean, it was pretty much a jab or just like a straight right hand. Maybe he wasn't, standing orthodox or southpaw or whatever it was. But it was just like, the second shot was just a crisp jab or straight punch, which, by the way, his jab last night was just crazy, right? It was like fight-stopping power in that jab. But he threw that thing, he landed it, and he dropped Spence with it because it was a shot that Spence didn't see coming. It was also obviously a hard shot, right? I mean, he's obviously got a sturdy jab. But Terence Crawford was hitting Errol Spence Jr. all night long with shots he didn't see coming. And I said it in my prediction, right? My prediction was Terence Bud Crawford, late stoppage or unanimous decision. I was right. I'm not here to tell you I told you so, but I was right. And the reason I felt that was going to happen was because Errol Spence, because he's so active and he has so much volume, it creates a lot of opportunity for a counterpuncher like Terence Bud Crawford to counter him. And that's exactly what he did. And Errol Spence just, at some point, just became helpless. Probably from the very beginning, was just helpless in this fight, right? Because every time he would move his head off the line, or he would slip this way, or he would slide that way, Terence Crawford knew what he was going to do, right? And he would anticipate one shot coming, and Crawford would throw a combo. It was like he was countering with combos. And the second or third, or sometimes the first shot, was landing clean. And what really impressed me, right, and I think what lent itself to the fact that he was getting caught so much was the fact that Errol Spence, his feet are not that great, and he's lunging in, and he's nowhere near as fast as Terence Crawford. But he's lunging in and leaving himself open, right? But what really impressed the hell out of me, I think it was the second knockdown, where Errol Spence, I want to say he committed real hard to throwing an overhand right, because, he was hitting Crawford with some of these shots. And, I do think he kind of had the right idea. Let me get him on the ropes and unload on him. But he cocked back, he telegraphed the hell out this punch, and he came with what looked to be an overhand right. And before it could get halfway there, Terence Crawford threw this, my God, this brilliant, and I'm so impressed by it, right? Because look at the moment we're in, look at the crowd, look what's at stake, look at the history. This guy hit him with an uppercut before the punch could land. It still, I believe, lands, but there's nothing left on it anymore because that uppercut just came out of nowhere in Spence's world and sat him on his ass. And it was such a beautiful counter shot, And then he had another one. He had another one where, I want to say Spence threw a hook at him, and he caught it, and he threw a hook with the same hand he caught it with and hit Spence in the temple. And it was just, listen, this was just a virtuoso, as they said, performance by Terence Bud Crawford. He could not miss. His timing was so perfect. He knew where Spence's head was going to go when he went there. It just goes to show you the levels involved in this sport, in this sweet science. And man, sorry about that. Terence Bud Crawford. Let me fix this real quick. Terence Bud Crawford, in the world of sweet science, is an absolute Albert Einstein, man. That was just absolutely wild, you guys. I'm so impressed by him. So to recap, that's pretty much it. I just thought that was incredible. Now I want to get into something real quick before I let you guys go. A lot of people were talking about pound for pound. People keep talking about pound for pound. Inoue being pound for pound after his last performance. And I agreed after that Inoue Fulton performance. I said, my goodness, we got to think about Inoue now until Saturday when Spence versus Crawford fight. I'll say this, right? In my opinion, after what I saw from Bud Crawford versus Spence, I think Bud Crawford's number one pound for pound in the world right now, right? I think Inoue's close, but I will say Crawford is number one pound for pound. That said, I heard someone say that Crawford beat Spence worse than Inoue beat Fulton. That I got to disagree with, only because I felt like Fulton didn't win a single round, and I felt like Spence won, at least on my scorecard, the first round and maybe the third. I thought he won the first and the third. And I thought he landed some effective shots against Terence Crawford. But that being said, the reason that I still think, right, Crawford is pound for pound over Inoue is because the victory is more impressive because the opponent is just more impressive, right? Fulton, as good as he is not Errol Spence Jr. And for Terence Crawford to do that against Errol Spence Jr., to make him look like that was just absolutely crazy. Now, my question to you guys, right? You know, I got to ask you a question after each video. What happens next? They're talking about a 154-pound potentially rematch. I think Crawford says it's up to them. I'm assuming he's talking about the promoters or maybe Spence's side. They're talking about a rematch possibly being at 154. It sounds like Spence would want it at 154. It sounds like he's having a lot of trouble getting down to 147 pounds. No excuses from him. He says the better man won, but it's definitely a factor to consider. Now, do you think this fight happens next, and who do you think wins this fight? Does Errol Spence even have a chance? I'm going to give you my opinion, right? I do think the fight happens next. I do think it probably happens at 154 pounds. And I do think that if this fight happens, Errol Spence does have a chance. As much as Errol Spence got dominated in that fight, he did show some glimmers of success. There was a little bit of success here and there. Again, I thought he won the first round. I thought he came back and did well the third round after being knocked down in the second. That being said, he's going to have to make some changes. One of the major changes I think he's going to have to make, and you can tell me what you think in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, join the channel. One of the changes I think he's going to have to make is he's going to have to stop lunging in. And I want to say he's going to have to fight like a kickboxer, right? What I mean by that is less head movement, high guard. Just come up with the high guard, really tight defense high guard. Because every time this man was slipping or lunging in for a punch or whatever he was doing, he was getting caught. Getting caught on the way in, getting caught on the way out, getting caught to the left, getting caught to the right. He needs to just stand upright, use his height, right? Be firm on that back foot and throw stiff jabs, 1-1-2, 1-1 big hook, and he needs to unload on Crawford when he gets him up against the ropes. I do think he needs to push him back. I do think he needs to rough him up on the inside. I do think he needs to stay away from that long range and that lunging. I want him upright, high guard, and just banging on Bud Crawford with straight punches, looping punches. But I don't want to see so much head movement. And I want the high guard. When he throws that punch, I need that hand right back because Crawford's going to counter. That's the only way I see Errol Spence winning this fight. And I do think he has a chance. I do think he's capable of doing it as bad as Saturday looked. Tell me what you guys think. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say about this. This was wild.